Heartless CEO ignored starving children daily, until desperate 6-year-old girl watched her eat and whispered, "Please, how much for a heart? My sister is dying." What happened next will break you forever. The Sterling Industries building cut through Manhattan's skyline like a blade of steel and glass. On the 47th floor, Victoria Sterling, 30 years old, was ending another devastating meeting. Her blue eyes, cold as cut diamonds, swept across the table where 5 executives sat sweating in their expensive suits. "Marketing department will be reduced by 40%. You have 48 hours to present me with a list." Her voice sliced through the air like a razor. "Next item, outsourcing Asian production to cut costs by 30%. Nobody dared question her decisions. The billionaire heiress of Sterling Industries was known throughout New York for one thing: results. It didn't matter how many families were destroyed in the process. Emotions were weakness. Compassion was expensive. At 7 p.m., Victoria sat alone on the rooftop of Celestial Terrace restaurant, mechanically cutting our $500 lobster thermidor. Her black Armani dress contrasted perfectly with her platinum blonde hair, pulled back in a flawless bun. Every movement was calculated, every breath measured, every decision cold. She always dined alone. Always had, always would. The painful flashback hit her without warning. Emma, at 6 years old, completely bald from chemotherapy, her tiny hand gripping Victoria's as she whispered in that sterile hospital room, "Vicky, how much does it cost to cure me? Do Mommy and Daddy have enough money to make me better?" Victoria, then 6 years old too, had promised through tears that yes, their family's money could buy anything, could fix anything. 2 years later, Emma died anyway. All their millions bought nothing but heartbreak. "Please, ma'am, how much does a heart cost? My little sister is dying." Victoria blinked hard, the memory shattering as she returned to the present moment. A painfully skinny 7-year-old girl stood beside her table, wearing clothes that were torn, dirty, and clearly several sizes too big. Her brown eyes sparkled with the same desperate hope Victoria remembered seeing in Emma's eyes during those final, terrible days. What did you just say?" Victoria whispered, her usually commanding voice failing her for the first time in decades. "My sister needs a new heart to live. How much does it cost?" "I have this to pay you." The little girl extended a dirty, crumpled quarter with small, trembling fingers. Victoria looked beyond the girl and saw an even smaller child, maybe 5 years old, sitting weakly on the cold restaurant floor near the decorative plants. The tiny girl was visibly sick, breathing with obvious difficulty, her pale lips slightly blue. The innocent question echoed endlessly in Victoria's mind. How much does a heart cost? The exact same question she had desperately asked her parents. When Emma was dying 22 years ago, for the first time since Emma's funeral, tears began rolling down Victoria Sterling's face. What happens when a billionaire's frozen heart meets desperate, pure love? The answer will change everything. Victoria couldn't stop trembling. The little girl's words had shattered something deep inside her that had remained frozen solid since Emma's death. She stood up abruptly, knocking over her wine glass, which crashed to the expensive marble floor in 1,000 sparkling pieces. What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked, kneeling down to the child's eye level for the first time in her adult life. "Grace," the girl replied cautiously, her small body tense with learned distrust. "And my sister is Sophia. She hasn't been able to breathe right for days now." Victoria's eyes moved to the smaller child sitting weakly against the restaurant wall. Sophia was pale as paper, sweating despite the cool evening air, her tiny chest rising and falling with obvious effort. Without thinking twice, Victoria pulled out her phone and called her driver. "James, bring the car around immediately. And call Dr. Harrison. my personal physician. Tell him it's a medical emergency, and I need him at my penthouse in 30 minutes. Lee. Other restaurant patrons stared in shock as Manhattan's most ruthless businesswoman gently helped two homeless children toward the exit. 30 minutes later, in Victoria's pristine Upper East Side penthouse, Dr. Jonathan Harrison was carefully examining Sophia, while Grace held her sister's small hand protectively. The apartment, once cold and perfectly arranged, now had two dirty children sitting on Italian leather sofas worth more than most people's cars. Mild pneumonia, severely aggravated by malnutrition. Dr. Harrison murmured quietly to Victoria, "A few more days on the streets and, well, you did the right thing bringing them here." Immediately, Victoria watched in amazement as Grace carefully fed Sophia warm soup, one tiny spoonful at a time, whispering gentle words of encouragement. It was exactly how she used to care for Emma during those endless chemotherapy treatments 22 years ago. "Where are your parents, honey?" Victoria asked as softly as she could manage. "They died in a car accident 8 months ago," Grace answered without taking her protective eyes off Sophia. "We lived somewhere bad after that. We ran away 3 weeks ago because they wanted to separate us. Orphans. Just like I almost was." That night, Victoria prepared guest bedrooms for the girls, finding children's pajamas she had impulsively bought years earlier without ever understanding why. She watched them sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks, Grace keeping one protective hand resting on Sophia's shoulder even in dreams. Alone in her master bedroom, Victoria opened a drawer she hadn't touched in years, pulling out faded photographs of Emma, twin sisters smiling, playing, living fully before leukemia stole everything beautiful from their world. She picked up her phone and dialed her assistant. "Natalie, I need you to cancel all my appointments for the next few days. Can I need children's clothes, toys, everything 2 little girls might need? Miss Sterling, it's nearly 2 a.m., and this is highly unusual. Natalie, this is the most important thing I've ever asked you to do." For the first time in decades, Victoria fell asleep without taking the anxiety medication that had been her nightly companion since Emma's funeral. And instead of nightmares, she dreamed of children's laughter echoing through her empty penthouse. Two broken hearts find each other. But will Victoria's past destroy their future? The truth will shock you. The morning brought clarity and investigation. Victoria hired New York's finest private detectives to uncover everything about Grace and Sophia Chun. The detailed report arrived within 24 hours and absolutely shattered her heart into pieces. Rebecca and Thomas Chun, a hard-working immigrant couple from China, had died in a horrific accident caused by a drunk driver speeding through a red light. Grace and Sophia were placed in state custody, but St. Joseph's Children's Home was overcrowded, understaffed, and poorly managed. Grace, smart beyond her 7 years, had lied about their ages, claiming they were 9 and 7 to seem more independent, and avoid being separated into different foster homes. They escaped when Grace overheard social workers planning to send them to separate adoptive families hundreds of miles apart. No living relatives anywhere. Completely alone, Victoria whispered, reading the heartbreaking report. It was her own childhood story all over again. Orphaned children, a failing system, and pure luck being the only difference between survival and tragedy. While the girls played quietly in her living room, Victoria drove to Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx for the first time in 15 long years. Emma's grave remained perfectly maintained. Their parents still paid groundskeepers to care for it with weekly flowers and careful pruning. "Emma," Victoria whispered, kneeling on the soft grass beside the white marble headstone. "2 little girls have appeared in my life, sisters, just like we were. One is sick, just like you were, and I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to do. The autumn wind gently moved the oak trees overhead, almost like a loving answer from beyond. They asked me how much a heart costs. The exact same question I asked about saving you. Maybe this is my second chance to answer that question differently. When Victoria returned to her penthouse, she found Grace patiently teaching Sophia how to draw colorful butterflies, the exact same drawings that Emma had loved creating during her hospital stays. That afternoon, her phone rang with an unwelcome but expected call. Margaret Sterling, her cold and demanding mother. "Victoria, I heard you're playing house with 2 street vagrants." "This nonsense stops immediately." "They're not vagrants, Mother. They're orphan children who desperately need help and love. Children who will destroy your professional reputation and damage the Sterling family name. If you don't get rid of them within 48 hours, I'll personally handle this situation myself." Victoria hung up the phone without another word. For the first time in her adult life, something was infinitely more important than her parents' approval or business reputation. "Grace, Sophia," she called gently to the girls. "Would you like to stay here with me? Forever? As a real family?" Grace stared at her with the deep suspicion learned through weeks of survival on dangerous streets. "You won't abandon us later when you get tired of us?" Victoria knelt down, looking directly into the little girl's wise brown eyes. "Never. Promise you on my sister Emma's memory that I will never abandon you." Sophia, still weak but improving daily, whispered her first complete sentence in weeks. "Aunt Vicky?" Victoria smiled through her tears of joy. "Yes. My sweet girl, Aunt Vicky. A promise is made, but dark forces are gathering. Will love be enough to protect this fragile new family?" 3 weeks completely transformed Victoria's penthouse from a cold museum into a warm home. The hallways that once echoed with lonely silence now rang with children's laughter and the sound of small running feet. Natalie Brooks had become the unofficial manager of their new family dynamic, expertly organizing medical appointments, shopping trips, and daily activities. Victoria quickly discovered that being responsible for 2 young children was infinitely more complex than managing a billion-dollar corporation. Grace suffered from nightmares about the terrible children's home and insisted on sleeping in the same room as Sophia every single night. Sophia was still recovering physically, but her sweet, gentle personality emerged more beautifully each passing day. "Aunt Vicky, do you know how to make pancakes?" Sophia asked one sunny morning, her brown eyes sparkling with innocent hope and hunger. Victoria, who had never cooked a single meal in her privileged life, spent 2 frustrating hours attempting to make pancakes from scratch. The results were absolutely disastrous, burnt, lumpy, and nearly inedible, but Sophia's delighted smile made every ruined pancake worth the effort. Grace watched everything with the careful attention of someone who had learned far too young not to trust adults too quickly. She constantly tested Victoria in small ways, leaving toys scattered around to see if she would be scolded, asking permission before eating fruit from the refrigerator, checking multiple times each night to make sure Victoria would still be there. When she woke up, "Why do you really want us here?" Grace asked one evening, direct and honest as always. Victoria stopped reading their bedtime story. "Because you two reminded me of who I used to be before I forgot how to love people." It was Grace who first started calling Victoria Mommy Vicky during a quiet afternoon when Sophia caught a cold and Victoria spent hours holding her while she slept peacefully. Victoria transformed her unused home office into a magical bedroom for the girls, complete with twin beds shaped like fairy tale castles, beautiful butterfly wallpaper, just like Emma used to love, and a tall bookshelf filled with hundreds of children's stories. For the first time in many years, her apartment actually felt like a real home instead of an expensive hotel. But Grace still woke up in the middle of the night to check that Victoria hadn't disappeared like so many adults before. "I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart," Victoria would whisper, gently hugging the frightened little girl. "You and Sophia will never be alone again. I promise." At Sterling Industries, employees began noticing subtle but significant changes in their demanding. "Boss." Victoria smiled occasionally during meetings, left the office early to pick up the girls from their new private school, and for the first time in her career, refused important business trips that would take her away from home. "Those little girls are making you soft," commented Richard Hayes, her skeptical vice president. "Those little girls are teaching me how to actually live," Victoria replied, surprising herself with the honesty. But their peaceful new life wouldn't last long. Margaret Sterling was already planning her next calculated move. Love is growing stronger, but a storm is coming. Will Victoria's newfound happiness survive her mother's wrath? The confrontation came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Victoria was returning from Sophia's pediatric appointment. She had gained 5 pounds and was completely healthy when she found Margaret Sterling waiting like a predator in her living room. Grace immediately hid behind Victoria's legs, instinctively recognizing danger. Even at 7 years old, she could sense when adults meant harm. "Margaret," Victoria said coldly, "I don't remember inviting you into my home. I'm your mother, and I came to resolve this ridiculous situation once and for all." Margaret, elegant and intimidating at 55, looked at the girls as if they were disgusting insects. "These children are transforming you into something pathetic and weak. They're transforming me into a human being with actual feelings." "Human?" Margaret laughed bitterly, her voice dripping with contempt. "You want to become that weak little girl who cried over Emma again, who begged doctors to perform impossible miracles. We raised you to be strong, Victoria, to win at everything. You raised me to be completely empty inside." Margaret pulled out a thick manila envelope with a triumphant smile. "I hired the best investigators money can buy. I discovered very interesting things about these girls' background. Their father had serious gambling debts. Their mother used heavy antidepressant medications. Defective genes, Victoria. We don't want that kind of damaged heritage in the Sterling family bloodline." Victoria felt Grace trembling with fear behind her legs. "Get out of my house this instant." "Your house?" Margaret smiled cruelly, enjoying every moment. "You seem to have forgotten who controls 49% of Sterling Industries stock. Your father and I can make executive decisions about your mental stability and fitness to lead. Remove these children immediately, or lose everything you've worked to build. I own 51% through my grandparents' inheritance trust. Are you absolutely certain about that? I suggest you carefully review the most recent legal documents." Victoria's blood turned to ice. Her manipulative parents had somehow legally altered her inheritance while she wasn't paying attention. "You have exactly 1 week, Margaret continued, with cold satisfaction. Get rid of these children or face a battle you absolutely cannot win. Family court proceedings, extensive psychiatric evaluations, media stories exposing your mental instability. We will completely destroy you if necessary to protect our family name." After Margaret left like a tornado of destruction, Victoria held Grace and Sophia close, whispering desperate promises she wasn't sure she could possibly keep. That night, alone in her home office, Victoria called her personal attorney with shaking hands. "Marcus, I need complete information about my legal custody rights regarding these children, and I want you to immediately verify my actual stockholding position in Sterling Industries. Victoria, without biological relationship or formal adoption. Proceedings, you have absolutely no legal rights over these children. And regarding your company shares, your mother is correct. Recent documents transferred significant portions of your inheritance into a trust fund controlled entirely by your parents." Victoria closed her eyes in defeat. The war had officially begun, but this time she wasn't fighting just for money or corporate power. She was fighting for love itself, and she had no intention of losing. The battle lines are drawn. Will Victoria's love be stronger than her family's money and power? The first hearing at Manhattan Family Court was a carefully orchestrated massacre. Margaret Sterling had mobilized the city's most expensive lawyers, transforming Victoria into a villain who had kidnapped two vulnerable children to satisfy her selfish personal whims. Dr. Harrison Cole, the Sterling family psychiatrist for 20 years, took the witness stand with visible reluctance written across his weathered face. Miss Sterling has demonstrated clear signs of emotional instability since her twin sister's tragic death, he declared reluctantly, avoiding Victoria's shocked gaze. I believe she is projecting her unresolved childhood trauma onto these innocent children in an unhealthy way. Victoria felt her world completely collapse. Dr. Cole had treated her for years after Emma's funeral. He knew better than anyone that she was stable, healed, and mentally sound. Why was he lying under oath? Her attorney, Marcus Rodriguez, fought bravely against impossible odds. But the Sterling family had prepared a devastating case. Photographs of Victoria during aggressive business meetings, detailed reports about her antisocial tendencies, and multiple witnesses describing her legendary corporate coldness. Your Honor, the Sterling family attorney argued smoothly, a single 30-year-old woman with no parenting experience, who has never demonstrated maternal instincts, cannot possibly provide a stable environment for traumatized minors. Then, Grace asked to speak for herself. The 7-year-old girl, wearing a pretty blue dress Victoria had bought her, walked to the witness stand with impressive dignity that silenced the entire courtroom. I want to talk about Mommy Vicky, she declared, her clear voice echoing through the formal legal chamber. Grace, Judge Warren began gently, you don't have to put yourself through this. Yes, I do. Grace looked directly at Margaret Sterling. With fearless determination. We lived on dangerous streets for 3 weeks. Nobody stopped to help us when we were hungry and scared. Nobody cared when Sophia was sick and couldn't breathe. But Mommy Vicky saw us. Tears rolled down Grace's brave face. She didn't adopt us because she needs us to fill some empty space. We need her. And for the first time since our parents died, we're not afraid to fall asleep. The packed courtroom fell into absolute silence. Sophia, who had remained quiet in Natalie's protective lap, suddenly climbed down and walked confidently to the judge's bench. She whispered something private in his ear that made the older man's eyes fill with tears. What did she say? Demanded the Sterling family attorney. Judge Warren cleared his throat emotionally. She said, Aunt Vicky does have a heart. She showed me exactly where hers is when she hugs me tight. Margaret Sterling visibly paled. Victoria felt something powerful expanding in her chest. Even if she lost this legal battle, she had won something infinitely more precious, the unconditional love of 2 little girls, who had chosen her as family. Judge Warren announced a 2-week recess for additional evaluation and consideration. 2 weeks for Victoria to find a way to keep her family together. Children's truth cuts deeper than lawyers' lies. But will love be enough to win against money and power? Victoria spent the entire night in the dusty attic of her childhood home in the Cannes, Hamptons, searching through boxes she had avoided for decades. She was desperately looking for any document that could prove her mental stability or rightful inheritance when she discovered something that changed absolutely everything. Hidden behind cobweb-covered storage boxes, she found a small wooden chest. She recognized immediately it had belonged to Emma during their childhood together. Inside, dozens of journals written in Emma's careful, childish handwriting. With trembling hands, Victoria opened the final diary, dated just 2 weeks before Emma's death. Today, I turned 8 years old, but I couldn't celebrate much. I'm so tired all the time now. Vicky cried when she thought I wasn't looking, but I always see everything. She thinks it's her fault I'm sick, but it's not anybody's fault. I want her to know I love her more than anything in the whole world. I want her to live for both of us when I go to heaven. I wrote a special letter for her and hid it inside my favorite teddy bear. Mommy and Daddy promised to give it to her if something happens to me. Victoria ran to Emma's perfectly preserved bedroom. The pink teddy bear still sat on the bed, exactly where Emma had left it 22 years ago. Inside the bear, a folded, yellowed letter. Vicky, if you're reading this, it means I went to heaven like the doctors said I would. Don't be sad forever, okay? It wasn't your fault or Mommy's fault or Daddy's fault. Sometimes people get sick, and there's nothing money can buy to fix it. But you can buy other important things. You can help other children who are sad like we were. You can give hugs to people who need them. You can be the big sister I can't be anymore. Live for both of us, Vicky. I love you forever and always. Emma. Victoria collapsed in heartbroken tears. Her parents had hidden this precious letter for 22 years. Emma had never blamed anyone for her illness. Emma wanted Victoria to live, love, and care for other children in need. Exactly what she was doing with Grace and Sophia. The next morning, Victoria confronted Dr. Cole in his private office. Why did you lie in court? You know perfectly well I'm mentally stable. Dr. Cole, a tired 60-year-old man with gray hair, seemed to age 10 years before her eyes. Your parents had secret recordings of our private sessions, personal things. You told me in confidence about feeling guilty over Emma's death. They threatened to completely destroy my medical career if I didn't testify against you. What recordings? You never recorded our therapy sessions. Recordings they made secretly when you were just a traumatized child. Conversations where you cried, saying you should have died instead of Emma. Victoria froze in horror. They recorded. An 8-year-old grieving child? More than that. They instructed me back then to intensify your guilt deliberately, to make you strong and focused on success. Margaret believed your pain would make you a better leader. The betrayal was beyond comprehension. Her own parents had manipulated her childhood, her grief, her healing process. Double quotes Dr. Cole. You're going to testify again. This time, you'll tell the complete truth. They'll destroy my life, and I'll protect you. But I need the truth to protect 2 little girls who deserve a loving family. Dr. Cole took a deep breath. You're right. It's time to do what's right. Victoria left his office with a plan. The war was far from over, but now she had powerful ammunition. The truth. Hidden secrets. Surface after 22 years. Will the truth be enough to save this family? The second hearing was completely different from the first devastating session. Dr. Cole, visibly nervous but absolutely determined, confessed everything under oath. The psychological manipulation by Victoria's parents, the secret recordings of a grieving child, and the deliberate instructions to intensify an 8-year-old's trauma. For 22 long years, I've carried the unbearable weight of this terrible lie, he declared, looking directly at Margaret Sterling with newfound courage. Victoria Sterling is not mentally unstable. She is a survivor who has finally found real purpose and meaning in her life. Marcus Rodriguez presented Emma's letter as crucial evidence, along with professional handwriting analysis, proving its complete authenticity and age. This letter, Marcus argued passionately, written by an 8-year-old child dying of leukemia, proves that Victoria carries no irrational guilt. She carries love and the sacred mission to live fully for both sisters. The final blow came when Victoria presented legal documents proving she actually owned 51% of Sterling Industries through a specific clause in her maternal grandparents' inheritance that her parents had conveniently forgotten to mention during their threats. I can provide financially for Grace and Sophia for the rest of their lives, Victoria declared with quiet confidence. But more importantly, I can love them unconditionally, something I learned from my beloved sister Emma. Margaret Sterling attempted one last desperate attack. These children will become nothing but burdens. Victoria doesn't understand the enormous sacrifice required to raise children properly. That's when Sophia stood up once again. At 5 years old, she walked confidently to Victoria and climbed into her lap during the middle of the serious court proceedings. "Mommy Vicky," she said loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear clearly, "can I tell the nice man about how you taught me not to have scary nightmares anymore?" Judge Warren smiled warmly. "Of course you can, sweetheart. Before, I used to dream about Mommy and Daddy's car accident every night. Now I dream about beautiful butterflies instead, because Mommy Vicky told me that people we love become butterflies in heaven, watching over us. She showed me pictures of Aunt Emma and said she sent the butterflies to protect us always." There wasn't a single dry eye in the packed courtroom. Judge Warren announced his final decision: temporary custody granted to Victoria Sterling, with complete reevaluation in 6 months for possible permanent adoption proceedings. Victoria hugged Grace and Sophia tightly in the courthouse hallway. For the first time in weeks of legal terror, she felt completely whole and hopeful. That evening, she took the girls to the cemetery to formally introduce them to Aunt Emma. "Emma," Victoria whispered to the marble headstone, "these are Grace and Sophia, the sisters you sent for me to love and protect." Grace carefully placed colorful butterfly drawings on the grave. Sophia planted a small white daisy in the soft earth. "Aunt Emma is smiling right now," Sophia declared with absolute certainty. Victoria looked up at the star-filled sky and, for the first time in 22 years, truly believed that Emma was indeed watching over them all. The healing had finally begun. For everyone, victory in court, but the real triumph is love conquering fear. A family is truly born. 6 months after the intense legal battle, Victoria's life had transformed beyond recognition. Sterling Industries now operated under a revolutionary new philosophy: profit with genuine purpose. Victoria delegated major responsibilities to Marcus Rodriguez, now operational CEO, and Natalie Brooks, now VP of Operations, allowing herself to work only 6 hours daily. Grace, now 8 years old, showed remarkable talent for mathematics and business strategy. She helped Victoria with simple spreadsheets and had memorized all of Sterling Industries' daily stock prices. "Mommy Vicky, why did our company's shares go up today?" Grace asked during breakfast, expertly reading the financial newspaper. "Because we announced comprehensive new employee benefits," Victoria explained, cutting pancakes for Sophia. "Does that mean our workers will be happier with their jobs?" "Exactly right, sweetheart." Grace smiled brightly. "So money can buy happiness. Just not the way most people think about it." Sophia, now 6 years old and completely healthy, had developed a passionate love for creating art. The penthouse walls were covered with her colorful drawings, mostly butterflies and smiling families. Holding hands, Victoria established educational trust funds for both girls and created sacred family traditions. Pizza Friday nights, the girls chose all toppings. Central Park Saturdays, even in rain, and bedtime reading every single night. Grace read to Sophia. Sophia read her drawings to Victoria. Family therapy with Dr. Sarah Kim helped all three process their past traumas together. Grace still occasionally woke up at night to check that Victoria hadn't disappeared, but these episodes were becoming much less frequent. "It's completely normal," Dr. Kim explained professionally. Grace assumed adult responsibilities far too early. It will take time for her to trust completely that she can simply be a child. One afternoon, while bringing the girls to her office, Victoria met Dr. Michael Harrison, a volunteer pediatrician who provided free medical care for Sterling. Industry's employees' families. "You must be the famous Aunt Vicky," Michael smiled warmly, kneeling down to properly greet Grace and Sophia. "I've heard wonderful things about you both." He remembered the names of their favorite toys, made silly jokes that made them giggle uncontrollably, and treated Victoria like a normal mother rather than a powerful billionaire. "I like him," Grace declared seriously in the car afterward. "He didn't pretend to be nice to us just to impress you." Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "And he has kind eyes." "Just like yours, Mommy Vicky." Victoria smiled, feeling something she hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine romantic interest in someone special. Maybe her life could include even more love than she had ever imagined possible. A new man enters their world, but can Victoria's heart open to romantic love after so much healing? Victoria and Michael's first official date happened in Central Park, with Grace and Sophia present by design. It wasn't planned as a romantic outing. He had offered to help with Sophia's school project about butterfly migration, and they ended up having an impromptu picnic together. "Dr. Mike knows so much about real butterflies," Sophia declared, absolutely fascinated, while Michael explained the incredible journey of monarch butterflies traveling thousands of miles. Grace, always protective of their family, tested Michael with characteristically direct questions. "Do you want to marry Mommy Vicky just because she's rich and famous?" Michael laughed genuinely. "Grace, I didn't even know your mother was wealthy when we first met. And marriage? We're just getting to know each other as friends." "Good answer," Grace approved solemnly, "because Mommy Vicky has cried enough tears in her life. We don't want her to cry anymore because of mean people." Michael looked at Victoria with tender understanding. "I don't want her to cry either, sweetheart." Over the following months, Michael integrated naturally into their established family routine. He appeared for casual dinners occasionally, helped patiently with homework assignments, and most importantly, always treated Grace and Sophia as the top priorities in Victoria's life. Many men become jealous of children, Dr. Kim observed during their regular family therapy session. "Michael clearly understands that you three are a complete package that cannot be separated." Sterling Industries continued thriving under Victoria's compassionate new leadership style. She implemented on-site childcare facilities, extended parental leave policies, and comprehensive adoption assistance programs for employees. Company profits have increased 23% since you humanized our corporate culture, Natalie reported during their quarterly business meeting. "Happy people work more productively," Victoria replied simply. "Grace taught me that basic truth." Grace, who frequently visited the executive offices, had become the unofficial company mascot. Employees regularly sought her out for consulting on mathematical problems, and she offered solutions with adorable seriousness. Sophia had transformed the main reception area into an impromptu art gallery, with her cheerful drawings creating beautiful contrast against the previously cold corporate decoration. "Those girls have changed absolutely everything here," Richard Hayes commented thoughtfully. "The old Victoria Sterling would never have allowed children's artwork on these walls." The old Victoria Sterling was dead inside, Victoria responded honestly. "These girls brought me back to life." One quiet evening, while tucking the girls into their beds, Sophia asked a question that stopped Victoria's heart completely. "Mommy Vicky, are you going to marry Dr. Mike someday?" Victoria hesitated carefully. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" "Because I want us to have a really big family, with a daddy too." Grace nodded in agreement. "Dr. Mike is nice to us, and he makes you smile differently than before." Victoria realized that, for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't planning her future alone anymore. And surprisingly, That possibility didn't frighten her at all. It filled her with hope that love is growing in unexpected ways. But will Victoria be brave enough to open her heart completely? The official dating request came from Grace, not Michael himself. "Dr. Mike," she declared seriously during their Sunday dinner, "do you want to officially date our mommy? Because you two keep looking at each other like people in love do in romantic movies." Michael nearly choked on his wine, while Victoria turned bright red with embarrassment. "Grace," Victoria protested weakly. "What? It's completely true," Grace insisted with typical honesty. "Sophia and I talked about it privately. We decided we officially approve of him." Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "Dr. Mike can be our daddy." "If he wants to be." Michael looked at Victoria, then at the two expectant girls, and smiled with genuine warmth. "Well, if I have official approval from the most important consultants in the world." He knelt beside Victoria's chair playfully. "Victoria Sterling, would you like to date me officially? With complete supervision from Grace and Sophia, of course." "Yes," both girls shouted before Victoria could even open her mouth to respond. Victoria laughed through tears of pure happiness. "Yes, Michael Harrison. I would love that very much." The following months brought wonderful new family dynamics. Michael began sleeping at the penthouse on weekends, participated in all their sacred traditions, and slowly became the father figure the girls had never. Dottie taught Grace to ride a bicycle in Central Park, while Victoria and Sophia cheered from the sidelines. He stayed awake all night when Sophia caught chickenpox, keeping her company while Victoria worked. He attended school conferences as Uncle Mike on all official documents. "He really loves you both," Victoria observed one evening, watching Michael read bedtime stories to the girls. "We know," Grace replied matter-of-factly. "That's exactly why we chose him for you." Sterling Industries continued flourishing under Victoria's leadership. She launched the Sterling Cares division, focused entirely on pediatric hospitals and adoption programs. Half of their annual profits were now dedicated to philanthropy. "You're changing the face of American capitalism," Michael commented, reading an article about Victoria in Forbes magazine. "The CEO who chose hearts over profits. I learned that money without love is just worthless paper," Victoria replied thoughtfully. "Grace and Sophia taught me the difference." Margaret Sterling made several awkward attempts at reconciliation, but Victoria maintained respectful distance. Her father, Winston, surprisingly began visiting occasionally, completely fascinated by Grace's remarkable intelligence. "She'll be an incredible businesswoman someday," he commented after Grace explained an investment strategy she had read about. "If that's what she chooses," Victoria corrected gently. "She can become anything she dreams of." On the first anniversary of finding Grace and Sophia at the restaurant, Victoria organized a special dinner at Celestial Terrace, the exact same table where everything had miraculously begun. "1 year ago, 2 amazing girls changed my life forever," Victoria toasted emotionally. "And 1 aunt changed our lives too," Grace responded with mature wisdom. Sophia raised her juice glass high. "To families who choose each other." Michael squeezed Victoria's hand under the table. "To second chances at happiness." Victoria looked around the table. Grace telling animated stories, Sophia drawing on napkins, Michael beaming with paternal pride, and realized she had found everything she had always searched for without knowing. She was no longer alone. She would never be alone again. 2.5 years after finding Grace and Sophia, Victoria finally made the adoption official in an emotional ceremony at Manhattan Family Court. The same Judge Warren presided, smiling warmly as he signed the life-changing documents. "For the first time in my 30-year career," he declared with satisfaction, "I can say with absolute certainty that these children are exactly where they belong in this world." Grace, now 10 years old, and Sophia, 8, chose to legally become Grace Chun Sterling and Sophia Chun Sterling, honoring both their biological parents and their new family simultaneously. I want to keep Chun because I loved my first parents, Grace explained thoughtfully. But I want Sterling because I love my new family too. The intimate ceremony included Dr. Kim, Natalie Brooks, Marcus Rodriguez, and Michael, who had become Uncle Mike on all official school documents and medical forms. Winston Sterling appeared unexpectedly, carrying beautiful flowers for his new granddaughters. I apologize for all the lost years, he said quietly to Victoria. These too precious. Girls taught me that being a grandfather is more important than protecting wounded pride. Margaret Sterling didn't attend, but sent a card to my granddaughters with reluctant but genuine love. That evening, at their celebration dinner, Grace made a speech that left everyone in tears. Mommy Vicky, you saved us when we were completely lost and afraid, but you also saved yourself. Before us, you had money but no real family. Now we're a family for real. Sophia presented a special drawing. 4 people holding hands under a rainbow, with a butterfly, Emma, flying protectively above them. Aunt Emma is happy in heaven, Sophia declared with certainty. She told me in my dreams. 3 months later, during their regular Sunday picnic in Central Park, Michael surprised everyone, especially Victoria. Grace, Sophia, he called seriously. I need your official permission for something very important. The girls stopped playing, immediately curious. Michael knelt on the grass. I would like to ask your mother to marry me, but only if you both approve completely, because you 3 are a package deal that cannot be separated. Grace crossed her arms, pretending to be stern. What exactly are your intentions with our mother? To love her forever, take care of all 3 of you, and be the best stepfather I possibly can. Sophia clapped her hands excitedly. Does this mean Dr. Mike will be our real daddy? If you want me to be. We do, both girls shouted simultaneously. Michael then turned to Victoria, who was crying tears of pure joy. Victoria Sterling, will you marry me and officially complete this crazy family I love so much? Yes, Victoria whispered, then louder. Yes. The ring was simple but perfect sapphire blue surrounded by small diamonds. Blue like Emma's favorite color, Victoria noticed. Immediately. Grace told me that was special to your family, Michael admitted. That night, planning their wedding in the living room, Grace made a profound observation. You know what's funny, Mommy Vicky? You always had enough money to buy anything. But the best things in your life came absolutely free. Victoria looked at her 2 daughters and her fiancé. You're absolutely right, my love. Love never cost a single penny, just courage to receive it. A family becomes complete, but the greatest surprise is yet to come. The wedding took place on a beautiful spring morning at the New York Botanical Garden, the same place Victoria used to take Emma before her illness. An intimate ceremony with 50 guests, including Sterling Industries employees who had become extended family. Grace and Sophia served as bridesmaids, wearing light blue dresses they had chosen themselves. They carried bouquets of white daisies, Emma's favorite flowers. Victoria wore a simple ivory silk dress, her hair flowing freely, radiating pure happiness. None of her former corporate coldness remained. Winston Sterling, surprisingly emotional, walked Victoria down the aisle. Emma would be so proud of the woman you've become, he whispered, kissing her forehead gently. Michael waited at the altar with tears in his eyes. When Victoria reached his side, he whispered, You look absolutely beautiful, all of you. The officiant was Dr. Kim, who had guided their family journey from the very beginning. 3 years ago, she began, a broken woman found 2 lost girls. Today we celebrate not just a marriage, but proof that families are created not only by blood, but by choice, love, and commitment. Their vows were written together, Michael, Victoria declared, you don't just love me, but you love my daughters, as if they were yours from day one. I promise to be your wife, partner, and best friend forever. Victoria, Grace, Sophia, Michael responded. You gave me purpose I never knew I needed. I promise to protect our family, support our dreams, and remind you daily how special you all are. Grace and Sophia exchanged symbolic rings with Michael, officially making him their stepfather. When they kissed, the girls threw rose petals in the air, shouting, now we're a complete family. The reception was in the penthouse garden, with live music and endless laughter. Grace danced with Winston Sterling, teaching him steps she'd learned at school. Sophia drew caricatures of the guests. Michael and Victoria danced under the stars, while the girls ran happily between the adults. You know what I love most about this story? Natalie commented to Dr. Kim. What? Victoria didn't just save Grace and Sophia. They saved Victoria too. And then Michael saved all of them. It's mutual salvation. During the cake-cutting chocolate with strawberries, chosen democratically by the family, Grace made an unexpected speech. Before we met Mommy Vicky, I thought family was only people born together. Now I know family is people who stay together when things get difficult. Thank you, Mommy and Daddy Mike, for staying with us. There was no traditional honeymoon. Instead, the family spent a week at a beach house in the Hamptons, building sand castles, collecting seashells, and simply being happy together. This is the perfect honeymoon, Victoria told Michael one evening, watching the girls hunt for crabs on the beach. I completely agree, he replied, kissing her forehead tenderly. 2 months later, Victoria made a life-changing announcement during a packed press conference at Lincoln Center. Today marks the official launch of Emma's Heart Foundation, she declared, with Michael, Grace, and Sophia beside her. A national initiative dedicated to orphan children, pediatric hospitals, and families who choose to love without biological limits. The foundation received an initial donation of $500 million from Victoria's personal fortune. The first project would be Emma Sterling Medical Center, a free pediatric hospital in the Bronx. My sister Emma died of leukemia when we were 8, Victoria continued, her voice strong but emotional. For 22 years I carried guilt about her death. My daughters Grace and Sophia taught me that Emma didn't want guilt. She wanted legacy. Life had become exactly what it was meant to be, simple, loving, and complete. The greatest legacy is love multiplied. But one final surprise awaits this perfect family. 2 years after the wedding, Victoria announced the most ambitious project of her life during a packed press conference at Lincoln Center. Today marks the official launch of Emma's Heart Foundation, she declared, with Michael, Grace, and Sophia proudly standing beside her. A national initiative dedicated to orphan children, pediatric hospitals, and families who choose love without biological boundaries. The foundation received an initial donation of $500 million from Victoria's personal fortune. The first project would be Emma Sterling Medical Center, a completely free pediatric hospital in the Bronx. My beloved sister Emma died of leukemia when we were 8 years old, Victoria continued, her voice steady but deeply emotional. For 22 years, I carried unnecessary guilt about her death. My daughters Grace and Sophia taught me that. Emma never wanted guilt from me. She wanted a meaningful legacy. Grace, now 12 years old, stepped confidently to the podium. My mother always asks how much a heart costs. We discovered the answer together. Hearts don't cost money. They multiply when you share them with others. Sophia, 10 years old, showed a drawing she had prepared. A colorful hospital with children playing in gardens and butterflies flying everywhere. This hospital will have happy colors, she announced seriously, because sick children still need to dream beautiful dreams. The audience of journalists, doctors, and philanthropists rose in emotional applause. After the conference, the family visited the empty land where the hospital would be built. Victoria knelt in the dirt, whispering to Emma, "We did it, little sister. We found a way to transform pain into pure love." Grace joined her. "Aunt Emma is proud of us. I can feel her presence here." Sophia planted a small daisy in the ground. "So she knows we remember her in this special place too." Michael embraced his 3 women, the family that had become his entire reason for living. "Dad," Grace said. She had started calling him that naturally. "Thank you for teaching us that. Good men really do exist in this world. Thank you for teaching me that love truly has no limits," he replied softly. That evening, dining at Celestial Terrace for their annual tradition, the 5th time, Victoria looked around their table and felt overwhelming gratitude. Grace was explaining to Michael her ideas for expanding the foundation internationally. Sophia was showing new drawings of castle-shaped hospitals. Michael listened with genuine attention, asking thoughtful questions that made the girls feel truly important. "Do you remember when you first asked me how much a heart costs?" Victoria asked them. "How could we forget?" Grace laughed. "You cried so much we thought you were physically hurt." "I was hurt, inside, for a very long time. And now?" Sophia asked innocently. Victoria looked at her chosen family daughters who had selected her, a husband who loved her completely, and a purpose that honored Emma's memory. "Now I know that hearts cost absolutely nothing. They just need courage to be offered freely." Michael raised his glass. "To courageous hearts. To chosen families," Grace added wisely. "To second chances," Sophia completed. "To Emma, who somehow brought us all together," Victoria finished. The future stretched before them, bright and filled with infinite possibilities. Love has multiplied beyond imagination, but the ultimate answer awaits. 5 years later, on a golden September afternoon, Victoria Sterling Harrison returned to Celestial Terrace with her family to celebrate the 8th anniversary of the day that changed everything forever. Grace John Sterling, now 14, had become a remarkable young woman, intelligent, compassionate, and determined to pursue philanthropic leadership. Sophia Shun Sterling, 12, had developed extraordinary artistic talent, with her works displayed in galleries supporting children's causes worldwide. Michael Harrison Sterling had become a devoted father and co-director of Emma's Heart Foundation, which now operated in 15 states across America. The newest family member, baby Emma Harrison Sterling, 18 months old, slept peacefully in her stroller, unaware she was named after the aunt whose legacy lived in every breath of their family. "Hard to believe everything started here," Michael commented, looking around the elegant restaurant that now felt like home to their family. "It didn't start here," Grace corrected with mature wisdom. "It started when Mommy decided to answer differently than the last time someone asked her how much a heart costs." Victoria smiled, remembering Emma's desperate question decades ago, the question that haunted her for years until Grace and Sophia freed her with unconditional love. While they enjoyed dinner, a child approached their table, a boy about 8 years old, wearing dirty clothes, with hungry but proud eyes, exactly like Grace had been. "Excuse me," he whispered, looking at Victoria. "Do you have any extra food you could share?" The restaurant fell silent. Other diners looked uncomfortable, expecting someone to call security. Grace stood immediately. "Of course. Would you like to sit with us?" Sophia pulled out an extra chair. "What's your name?" "Tyler," the boy replied. Surprised by their kindness, Victoria felt tears in her eyes, watching her daughters naturally repeat the love they had received years earlier. "Tyler," Victoria said gently, "are you alone?" The boy nodded, trying not to cry. "My mom's been in the hospital for a week. I don't have anywhere else to go." Michael was already calling foundation social workers while Grace served Tyler food. Sophia offered him paper and crayons to draw while he ate. "Tyler," Victoria continued, kneeling beside his chair, "would you like to come home with us tonight? Until we find out about your mother?" The boy looked suspicious. "Why? You don't even know me." Sophia, wise beyond her years, answered, "Because someone did this for us when we needed help. Now it's our turn to help you." Grace agreed. Families grow when you share love. Baby Emma woke up then, reaching tiny arms toward Tyler as if she knew him. The boy smiled for the first time, gently touching her small hand. "She likes you," Michael observed. "Emma has good instincts about people." That evening, Tyler was safe. In their home, taking a warm bath and wearing clean clothes. Victoria had learned his mother was in a coma after an accident, with no other relatives. "He can stay in the guest room," Grace suggested. "Sophia and I can help take care of him." "Like you and Emma took care of each other," Sophia added naturally. Later, after Tyler fell asleep surrounded by borrowed teddy bears, the family gathered in the living room. "Do you realize what happened today?" Victoria asked. "The circle completed itself," Michael replied. "You received love, and now you're passing it forward." Grace reflected. "It's like Aunt Emma sent Tyler to remind us our mission never ends." "Our family is growing again," Sophia smiled. Victoria looked toward the room where Tyler slept safely, then at her daughters, who had become compassionate women, then at her husband, who made everything possible, then at baby, Emma representing. "Endless hope. Do you know the answer?" she asked softly. "To what?" Grace wondered. "To the question you asked me 8 years ago. How much does a heart cost?" Her family listened carefully. "A heart," Victoria said with absolute certainty earned through years of love, "costs nothing at all. But it's worth everything. And when you offer it to someone who needs it, it multiplies infinitely." Outside, Manhattan's lights sparkled like earthbound stars. Inside their home, a chosen family prepared to grow once more, proving that love isn't a finite resource dot. It's a force that expands every time it's shared. And that force had transformed Heartless CEO into a woman who finally knew the true value of a human heart. Everything. Absolutely everything.